Hey guys, Rylan Russell here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk to you about 7 of my favorite lenses that we use on our church's live stream and in other places with our Micro Four Thirds camera system. We are all Panasonic GH line, GH5, G7, G85, GH4, all those things. But if you use a Blackmagic Pocket 4K or another Olympus or something like that, these will work great for you. So let's dive into it. This is my very favorite lens, the first of the 7 I'm going to talk to you about. This is the Panasonic 35-100. And it is a great lens because it is a constant f2.8 aperture. It has power OIS, which is just image stabilization, and it's really light. It doesn't move the barrel whenever you zoom in and out. I've used this thing all over the place. We actually have 3 of these lenses, and they're not super cheap. But man, they have a great image. The constant f2.8 is just enough light for your Micro Four Thirds stuff. The only downside to these Panasonic lenses is that they are focused by wire, so they don't have hard stops. If you need something like that, you're gonna need to go to like an Olympus style lens that has the clutch. So, but I love these Panasonic lenses. Great bang for your buck. So look at these, the 35-100, you can go for the older style, which this one is, or the new version. I can't really tell that much of a difference. They work with the sensor stabilization of your camera though, which is great. The little brother to that lens, which is always a great lens to get, is the Panasonic 12-35. This lens is also f2.8 and it has the image stabilization built into the lens, which combines to give you dual stabilization. It does, however, zoom the barrel when you zoom, which is kind of annoying, but not that big of a deal. And it's a great lens to use on a gimbal. The 35-100 I've used all over the place on a gimbal. It's also great for that. But this is a great lens because it can do a wide shot of your room. You can set it over and do a medium shot off the side, something like that. 12-35 is equivalent to 24-70 on a full frame camera. The third lens is this Lumix 42.5 1.7, and I love this lens, man. They make a Nocticron 42.5 1.2, but that's like $2,000 or something. And this little guy, it puts out an amazing image, and it's 1.7 on the f-stop, and it has image stabilization as well that will combine with your sensor. And so all of these 3 lenses that I've talked to you about, we actually can hand hold with our GH5 and get great smooth footage. And so we use that 35-100 all the time. The 35-100 is just probably my fave, but these other 2 that I've mentioned, the 12-35 and the 42.5, get used a ton. The 4th lens that I want to mention is this Lumix 20mm lens. It is a f1.7 as well, so it lets in a ton of light, but as you can see, it's just tiny. It's a little pancake lens, and we use this as our wide shot on a Panasonic G7 at 1.7. We actually, since it's so small, we have that camera mounted on a magic arm, just a little clamp on one of our poles, and it just sits there and lives there. It's light enough, we don't have to worry about the weight of it moving it around. And the autofocus on this is actually pretty good. There's no image stabilization, and you can't switch off of, like, there's no autofocus, manual focus switch or anything like that. But it's a great lens for really cheap. So all of these I'll link in the description to where you can get these lenses. Obviously you can shop for used, but if you just want to check and see the prices, look in the description. In that same family, there's another pancake lens that Lumix makes. It's the 14mm f2.5. And so this little guy we use on our cable cam, and it is so tiny as well. And it's even lighter than the 20mm lens. But man, the 14mm gets you wide enough to where you don't have to spend all that money on a 12-35 if you just need a wide shot. So check out this lens if you need something like that. So that is the Panasonic native Micro Four Thirds lenses. But one of the great things about the Micro Four Thirds system is that you can adapt so many different lenses onto it. So that is what we have done for our main roaming camera. We use the Canon 70-200 version 2 f2.8, and this lens is just awesome. I mean, it gives you built-in stabilization on the lens. You have autofocus. You don't really want to use that more than just trying to grab focus. Built-in stabilizer mode where you can, like if you're on a tripod, switch to the correct mode for panning and tilt. And this guy's a beast, but the image is great. While a 35-100 that I showed you earlier is equivalent to a 70-200, they're not equivalent when you put a 70-200 on a Micro Four Thirds body. If this lens was on a full frame, then yes, they'd have the same field of view. You put this on a Micro Four Thirds sensor, it's going to be a lot tighter of a focal length. So we will use this combined with the teleconverter built into the camera sometimes to get really tight shots on people. And if you want to see what these lenses look like in our setting, in our live stream, I will link to a video that I've made talking about the complete broadcast setup here at our church. And in that, there are example shots of all these different stations. So that's my top 6. Number 7 is actually the very first lens I ever bought, and it's still an amazing lens. Let me grab it. This is the Sigma 18-35 and is an EF lens, but it will only cover an APS-C style sensor. So when you put it combined with the Metabone Speed Booster, which the 70-200 is as well, it brings that f-stop down. And so this lens becomes a 1.2, and that 70-200, it becomes a 2.0. So, you know, doing the speed booster thing is definitely an option. These lenses are more expensive, it seems like, once you add in the Metabones, but they're a great option as well. If you have no money whatsoever, don't go out and buy like the Mikey or the 7 Artisan lenses. I've got some of them sitting up here. I probably have 30 different lenses that I've tried. For the money, if you have no money at all, I would say go get like maybe a vintage Canon FD lens and adapt that if you have a Micro Four Thirds system. But I mean, these lenses are not that expensive. And here's the thing, invest in your glass. Bodies change. I've had these lenses for some of them, you know, 7-8 years now, and they're still great, great glass. So I always say we can do a lot of great things. Let's do them all for the right reasons. And I hope that this video has been helpful to you guys. If you want to see what these shots look like in action, I will link to that video of our broadcast setup in the outro. All right, guys, have a good one.